All right, this is Ubaid on behalf of V Electronics, and in this video, we'll be talking about the impact of monetary policies on interest rates. Okay, so when it comes to your monetary policies, the monetary policies have to do with changing your interest rates. Okay, they have to do with okay, pushing your interest rates up and down. Okay, so impact of monetary policies on interest rates. All right, so when it comes to your monetary policies, okay, assuming that you have your interest rate over here on the y-axis, okay, and let's assume that this is your aggregate demand, okay, and this one over here, let's assume that this is your long-range average supply, okay, potential GDP, and let's assume that at some point over here you have your aggregate supply, okay, so this is aggregate supply. Let me draw it this way. Okay, so all right, and this is your aggregate demand. This is your LRAS. Okay, and this one over here, this is your aggregate supply, which has to do with loanable funds and which has to do with interest rates. Okay, so over here we know that as the monetary policies such as um, buying bonds, okay, when they kick in, when the central bank buys bonds from the commercial banks, when they go ahead and buy or purchase bonds, the aggregate supply curve, okay, will move to the right, right? Because as they buy bonds, they pump money into the system, more specifically into the bank's reserves. And we're talking about commercial banks. And because they pump money into the commercial bank's reserves, okay, the aggregate supply curve, and this has to do with supply of loanable funds will go up. Okay, they will shift to the right. Okay, because when you have more money in the reserves, you have access reserves, which you can use for lending money. Okay, and that's what a commercial bank does. As a result of which, supply of loanable funds, funds that banks can loan, goes up, and the curve shifts to the right. When the interest rates, okay, or when the central bank rather, when they go ahead and reduce the purchase of bonds, for example, and we're talking about treasury bonds, bills, so on and so forth, from the commercial banks, they pump less money into the system, as a result of which, okay, your aggregate supply of loanable funds will be reduced. Okay, so aggregate supply of loanable funds gets reduced, and this curve shifts to the left. Okay, now this is for an expansionary policy because obviously, as the supply of loanable funds goes up, okay, production goes up, okay, business spending goes up, business spending goes up, which means your real GDP goes up. Okay, so this is an expansionary policy relevant to economic growth. Expansionary policy relevant to economic growth. This is economic growth. And this one over here, this is a contractionary policy. Okay, and this has to do with economic shrinkage or contraction. All right, and we also know that as the supply of loanable funds, as the supply of loanable funds go up, the interest rates go down. So interest rate is inversely proportional to the supply of loanable funds, which the central bank supplies by buying treasury bonds. And we can see that on the graph over here. Okay, as the supply of loanable funds goes up, the curve shifts to the right. Aggregate supply curve of loanable funds shifts to the right. As it shifts to the right, okay, we know that the interest rates fall. So this is interest rates over here, they fall. As the supply of loanable funds shifts to the left, okay, the interest rates they go up, which means as the supply of loanable funds is reduced during a contractionary policy, as the interest rates go up, okay, you have economic contraction. Okay, so supply of loanable funds goes down, interest rates go up. It's sort of like your demand when it comes to price and demand and movement along the curve. As demand goes up, okay, or as price goes up, demand goes down. As price goes down, demand goes up. Okay, same story over here. Now, the other concept that we need to understand over here has to do with Federal Reserve rate, okay, or federal rate. Okay, so this has to do with the rate at which commercial banks borrow money from each other, let's say overnight. Okay, so if commercial banks are short of cash for their required reserves or short of cash for lending money, they might borrow from other banks before they go ahead and borrow money from the central bank. So this is the other concept over here. So federal rate. So this is your federal rate. And when it comes to your federal rate, okay, what's happening over here is your federal rate, okay, will be directly proportional to your interest rates. Okay, so this is what the feds are targeting. They're targeting the federal rate. Okay, so federal rate is directly proportional, or federal funds rate is directly proportional to your interest rates. So what that basically means is that as interest rates go up, your federal funds rate will go up. As interest rates go down, your federal funds rate will go down. As interest rates go up, your federal funds rate go up. As interest rates go down, your federal funds rate go down. All right, so that would be it when it comes to this video. When it comes to impact of monetary policies on interest rates, this is Obaid on behalf of V Electronics. Have yourself a great day.